the most exciting features of SDRconnect is the ability to connect to your RSP remotely, either on your local network or indeed across the internet. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set that up. First up, we'll deal with starting the server and the options available to you, and then setting up a client to connect to that server. Once again, I will be demonstrating setting up a server on my Mac Mini with Apple Silicon. I'm assuming you have first installed SDRconnect, and I have it running here, and as you can see, it's connected to an RSPDX. Now, if we wish to set up a server so we can access the RSPDX remotely, if you're running SDRconnect, first you must close the program. To start the server, we do that from a terminal window. And you can see I have the terminal down here in my dock. If you do not have it down there, then you can simply use the top menu, go to Utilities, and find Terminal and open it up from there. Now, to run the server, we have to do it from the location of the SDRconnect executable. And I'm not a big fan of typing long commands in terminal, so I'm going to show you the easy way that I do it, being as I'm very much a point and click kind of guy. So we go to our applications folder, we find SDRconnect, we right click and select show package contents. If we then do that, within contents we will see a folder called Mac OS, and within that folder we will see the executable SDRconnect. Now the trick here is if you have the finder set up to show the path name down here, we can right click down here and we can do copy as path name. We can then take that over to our terminal window. We can paste it into the terminal window, and then after SDRconnect, the minimum command we need to put in here, or option, is -- server, and that will open up the server with default settings. Hit return, and what you will see is the server. This is the revision number of the program. Right here it says it's listening on port 3000. It's found one device. This would be the RSPDX, and there is its serial number and various other information about how the server is set up. And by default you're allowed to connect up to 8 clients, and it says server started, and the server will continue to run until you press Ctrl+C to stop it. There are many different commands you can use in conjunction with the server, and one way to see them is to use the help command. So I will hit the up arrow, get back to that command, and then I can put --help after server, and it will now open up a big window that shows all the command options that you can have. So you are able to do things like specify a particular RSP. This might be useful if you had more than one RSP connected to your computer. You can specify the port number you want to listen on. You can select which antenna input is being used if you have an RSP2 or an RSPDX or an RSP Duo. And you can select various other functions according to your particular needs. So by way of a quick summary, the basic command is SDRconnect --server followed by options, and that will start the server running. By default, port 50,000 is used. I know my demo showed something different, but that was in an earlier release of SDRconnect, and you can use different port numbers if you desire, and that's you can certainly use multiple different port numbers for multiple servers that are living on your same network. If you're not using a Mac and using one of the other platforms, or indeed if you are using a Mac, the way to start the server is first to change directory to go to where the SDRconnect executable lives, and that's shown on the screen. And once you're in that directory, The various commands are shown. They differ very slightly depending on platform, and they're shown here for your reference, and also in the accompanying app note that's linked to in the description of this video. And then finally, this slide shows the various options that are available. Again, it's here for reference only. If you want to see it on your own computer, just type the command SDRconnect space --server space --help, and that incredibly small text you see on the screen will come up on your monitor, and you can select any options you care to use. So now let's get back to the example of me running this on my Mac. I might also mention, on a Mac at least, do not use port 55555. That seems to be used internally by Mac OS, and you will get an error if you try to do that. So at this point we've set up the server. So now any device can connect to this server from our local LAN or indeed across the internet, including the same device the server's running on. So if I now reopen SDRconnect from the icon, it will refresh the device list up here, and it no longer shows the RSPDX because that is being used by the server itself. So what we now need to do is we need to put in the server credentials to allow this client to connect to the server we now have running. So the next step is to input the server information into SDRconnect so that we can connect to it. To do that, we go to the other actions, 3 dots up here, click on that, and we'll select Edit Server List. We don't have any servers set up already, so we'll hit the plus sign to add a new server. For display name, we can call it whatever we like. I will call it my server. Host name, if we're on the local network, we don't care about. The IP address is going to be the IP address of the computer on which the server is running. So if you're using a Mac, we can go into Wi-Fi settings in my case, or network settings in any case, and if I look for details, I see that my IP address is 10.00.179. So going back to connect, I can put in here 10.00.179. Let's get rid of that extraneous. And the port number we were using, remember we set it up to be for port 50,000, which is probably going to be the default number that shows up when you set up your own system. And then click on Save. Once we've done that, we can close the edit window, go back up here and hit the Refresh Device List button. After we've refreshed, we'll see my server has shown up. In fact, if you look at the drop down, there are 2 options, IQ and audio. We'll go into the differences in a moment, but for now, since I'm on the local network, I will select IQ and then click play. And we see some signals. If you recall, I'm using an RSPDX, and I want to put it on antenna A, which is where my antenna lives. And you can see I have a bit too much gain, so I'll turn that down a little bit until the overload warning goes away. And basically what you're doing is you are seeing exactly the same thing that you would see if you were controlling an RSP connected directly to the machine you're running the client on. So being as I'm the first client, I have full control over the RSP. We showed you these settings here, and then we can also do things such as changing the mode and so on and so forth. On the right, we see we have the auxiliary spectrum, and we also can look at the audio spectrum. Again, just like when we were connected to a device with a local connection to SDRconnect. So this slide, which you can find in the PDF app note, just summarizes what we just covered and tells you which fields you need to input for connecting to the server on your local LAN. Now, I used the client running on the same computer that the server was running on, but the instructions would be the same if you used a different computer as long as it was on the same LAN. So for example, I could have set up the server on a Raspberry Pi and then moved over to a Windows desktop or a Mac desktop and put in this same information, and I would connect to that RSP, which is physically connected to the Pi, but to SDRconnect it would appear just the same as if I was connected locally. If instead of connecting over the local network we wish to access a server across the internet, the server setup is a little bit different. So let's go back to the server settings. We'll do edit server list again, and we will add a new server now. And again, we give it a name. I'm going to call this my internet server. And there's a couple of ways we can set this up. One way is just to use your IP address as seen on the internet, and you may wonder how you determine what that is. One way is to go look in your router settings, which will show you what your WAN IP address is, or another way is just to use Safari. We can open up Safari and we can type in whatismyip.com, and it will come back and tell us this is my WAN IP address. So I can copy link. That's probably not exactly the right way. And then I can go back to SDRconnect and I can put that information in here. Yeah, it's got a lot of extraneous junk, so we can get rid of that and just leave us with the IP address. If I can find the delete key. Once again, the port number by default, you were probably seeing 50,000, and that's the number we used for the port when we set up the server. And again, save. Once we've saved it, again, we need to refresh. First we'll stop the stream, and then we'll refresh the server list. And now when we look, in addition to my server on the local network, we also have the internet server set up. So we could select that if we were connecting from outside. Now, one thing I would like to mention at this point is that on the edit server list, and now we have it, we can drop that down and find my internet server. We specified the actual IP address. Another way is if you have set up a dynamic DNS service of some sort, instead of having to find out or remember what your WAN IP address is, you can use your host name. So it'll be something like this: my hostname.dindns.org. And the reason I typed in dns.org is because that's the dynamic DNS service that I subscribe to. You do not have to have a paid service. There are some free services out there. And once that is done, all you need to do is remember your host name and put that in the server list, and then the dynamic DNS server will look up that host name to translate that to an IP address and will connect using that. So that's the alternative way to set it up. There is more information about that in the accompanying PDF, and there's a link to the PDF in the description of this video. So here's a summary of the settings you need to make when you wish to connect to your server from the internet. Once again, this information can be found in the PDF app note, which is linked to in the description of this video. And here is an example of what you're looking for if you try to go to your router settings to find your WAN IP address. My router is from Infinity, and the settings are accessed via an app. Some routers have web page access, but you're looking for that WAN IP address if you wish to specify that manually. Now, when you're connecting from the internet, there is one more very important step you must take, It's all very well for the remote client to come in and find your host either by hostname or by its IP address, but how does it then know how to connect to the appropriate computer on your local network where the server is running? To do that, you need to set up something called port forwarding. So port forwarding has to be set up on your router, and the exact method for doing that depends on the particular router you have. So what you need to do is either go into the app or the web page for your router and find the port forwarding settings. These settings will typically allow you to specify an incoming port number, which you then redirect to a specific computer on your network, either on the same port number, or in some cases you could specify a different number. Here is an example of how I'm set up on my own network. I have one computer called Steve's Mini, and I port forward port 50,000 to that computer when it receives an incoming connection. I also have another computer called M1, and that's set up to receive incoming traffic on port 3000. As you can see from the slide, the corresponding server commands for the servers on the Mac Mini and on the M1 are shown there. And the only difference between them being I specify which port number I want to go to which computer. If you only have one computer on your system you want to use with Connect as a server, then it's perfectly straightforward. Just go with the default port number of 50,000 and set up your router such that incoming traffic is forwarded to that particular computer on port 50,000. Please refer to your router documentation for further information on setting up things as described here. At this point, it would be remiss if I did not say a few words about security. As you may know, anytime you connect a computer to the internet, there is the potential for malicious attacks from outside. Normally, that's not of concern to us in return for the convenience of accessing the internet, web browsing, email, and so on and so forth. And for the most part, your firewall will do a good job of protecting you. However, your firewall normally will block incoming connections and allow outgoing connections. When you set up port forwarding, you are opening a specific port to incoming connections, and that involves some element of risk. Therefore, we suggest you only set up port forwarding at times when you know you want to log into your computer remotely to access the server. If this risk concerns you in any way, then there are ways around this. You can set up a VPN or virtual private network. If you don't know how to do that, you can get your friendly IT professional or computer savvy friend to do it with you. Now, I don't want to scare you away. We've set up multiple servers and we've had no issues whatsoever, but I know some people are especially security conscious, and of course SDRplay cannot accept any responsibility in the event that some sort of malicious attack is launched upon your system. But again, the risk is very small indeed, and we just wanted to make you aware of that point. So now that you've got the client set up to connect to your server, either remotely or across your local network, I wanted to talk a little bit about the different modes available. Each time you make a change to the client settings, hit the refresh button, and then in the drop-down, your servers will appear. Each one will have a choice of either IQ or audio. IQ is the mode suggested for use on your local LAN. Audio is recommended if you're connecting via the internet. IQ mode, as the name suggests, takes the raw IQ data from the RSP and sends it across the network for you to process at the client end. It's essentially equivalent to having a local USB connection to your RSP. When you're in this mode, in addition to the primary spectrum and waterfall, you have the option of looking at the auxiliary spectrum or indeed the audio spectrum. But to transmit all this data around requires high bandwidth. We recommend a gigabit LAN, although I've had good success also on high-speed Wi-Fi networks. The second mode is audio. What that does is it receives the demodulated audio stream from the remote RSP connected to the server, and also information that allows it to display a spectrum and waterfall. The auxiliary spectrum in this case is not available, but you can still see the audio spectrum. This is the best compromise for use over the internet, where you're unlikely to have enough bandwidth available to send the full IQ data stream. And that's it. So in summary, first set up a server. I showed you how to do that on the Mac, but I also showed instructions for doing it on the other platforms. Then configure the client you wish to connect to the server. It will need to be given an IP address and port number, which may vary depending on whether you're using a local LAN connection or accessing via the internet. If you are coming in from the internet, you will also need to set up port forwarding. If you want more information or to check for the latest information, please visit our website, SDRplay.com. Once again, I'd like to remind you that there is an app note that is linked to in the description of this video that summarizes a lot of the information here, as well as offering some additional information on assigning IP assignments on your local network and setting up dynamic DNS servers. Thank you for watching our video. I hope you found it informative. As always, visit the website for further information. 73.